Hey everybody, welcome to Pack 1 Pick 1 number 210 on the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and we have another pack of Throne of Eldraine, and also, this might be the last week that we have this playmat. I can finally get one without a pen mark here that has now slowly started to fade, but is still very much there. Anyways, we're going to open this pack and talk about what's in it and what we would take Pack 1 Pick 1 if this was a draft. Now, every week, this pack goes to somebody over at patreon.com/themanaleak at the $5 level or above. You can go over there and get in on that yourself. And this week it's going to Mr. Scary Gary P. We're going to open this pack, see what's in it, and see what we would take. I should also clarify, I've had a couple of comments asking why I spend 10 minutes doing a pack. Why don't I just open the pack and show the rare? Because we're talking about this from a draft. We're talking about this not necessarily to the most enfranchised players who know every card already. We're addressing the format and kind of getting used to the format. Up first is Moonlit Scavengers. Moonlit Scavengers is 5 and a blue for a creature merfolk rogue. It's a 4/5 when it ETBs if you have an artifact or enchantment. You get to bounce something to its owner's hand that an opponent controls. You can't bounce your own, kind of a pain in the butt, but still a totally solid card. I'm happy to have these. I'm not really ever happy to first pick them though. And of course you don't want to have like 5 of these. You want like 2, maybe? Preferably 1, not a first pick. Up next is Bargain. Bargain is a single red mana for an instant. Target attacking creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and your non-humans that are attacking also get trample until end of turn. It's a fine combat trick. If you're in a very aggro deck, you'll play one of these pretty happily, but it's very far from a first pick. Up next is Smitten Swordmaster. Smitten Swordmaster is 1 and a black for a creature human knight. It's a 2/1 with lifelink. It can go on an adventure to curry some favor for a single black at sorcery to drain X life from your opponent, where X is the number of knights. Totally solid card, gets really gross with Lucky Clover. If you're in a knight deck, you'll happily play this. It's not amazing, and I think that's just because the Knights decks haven't been as good as other decks. They're still fine, you can still play them, and this is still a role player in it, but it's not quite as good as I had originally hoped. Still good, not a first pick. Up next is Unveiling Treefolk. Unveiling Treefolk is 5 and a green for a creature Treefolk Druid. It's a 6/5 vanilla creature, but it can go on a very good adventure, Oaken Boon. 3 and a green for a sorcery. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Very good card. Very good card. Both sides of this are fine, and when you put them both on one card, it becomes pretty decent. I'll happily play a few of these if I'm in generally any green deck, and if I am taking advantage of adventures, it's just that much better. That said, not a first pick. Up next is Fling. Fling is 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. Fling deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. Not very good. I know people love doing this, and they love thinking about that time where they're going to build something up to be a 10/10, and then they're going to fling it for 10 damage to their opponent. But that happens very rarely. Typically, this sits in your hand and does nothing, or maybe you have to sacrifice a 2/2 to kill a 2/2 and you 2 for 1 yourself. It's not a good card. You'll win more games if you never, ever play Fling. Up next is Scalding Cauldron, which I think is our first pick so far. Scalding Cauldron is a single generic mana for an artifact. Pay 3, tap, sack it to deal 3 damage to target creature. Not to any target, just target creature. This is totally solid, primarily because it's colorless, which means it leaves you open. You can play this and still end up in a mono-colored deck or in a 12 island, 5 swamp kind of deck. It's a real role player because of that, and it kills a good deal of the format. It's totally fine. It's not a strong first pick, but I think it is currently the first pick. Hopefully, we replace it with something else. Barrow Witches is Barrow Witches is up next. Barrow Witches is 4 and a black for a creature human warlock. It's a 3/4, and when it ETBs, you can return target knight card from your graveyard to your hand. Totally solid card if you are playing any knights whatsoever. If you are in the knights deck, obviously this is an absolute super must include and a high pick. If you've only got a couple of knights, it's okay, but you're not feeling great when you cast this as a 5 mana 3/4. So that being said, it's not really a first pick. It's more of a card that you're happy to see when you're already starting to get some value out of it. If that's the case, great, but Pack 1 Pick 1, that's not the case. Up next is Corridor Monitor. Corridor Monitor is 1 and a blue for a 1/4 artifact creature construct. When it ETBs, you get to tap, or you get to untap target artifact or creature that you control. This card I've played more than I expected. It's not good, but it blocks. And sometimes that's what you need when you're in a blue deck. It's a very filler card. I'd happily play most other cards that I can over this. The times that I have played this, it's because I'm in blue and red, and the only thing I have is a Barrow Witches in my sideboard, and that doesn't go in a blue-red deck. Corridor Monitor, not good, not a first pick, but it's a fine filler. Up next is Garen, Brig, Paladin. Garen, Brig, Paladin is 4 and a green for a creature giant knight. It's a 4/4, but it's got adamant. If you cast this with 3 green mana, you get to put a counter on it, so it's a 5/5. And that little bit of text down there at the bottom, it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. It cannot be chumped. This card's great. It's very, very, very good in green decks. I don't know if it's a top 3 green card. Outmuscle is obviously up there. Fierce Witchstalker is up there. I don't know if it gets spot number 3 or not, but it's pretty close. I'd feel bad first picking it, so it's not going to stay in frame. Scalding Cauldron I would prefer because it's colorless. We're still open. We're not already picking a color here. But if you're in green, you're going to be pretty happy to see one of these come around. Our final common, 1, 2, 3, 4. Our final common, no foil this time, is Dwarven Mind. Dwarven Mind is a land mountain. Tap it to add a red mana. It comes in tapped if you don't have 3 other mountains, but if it does come in untapped on turn 4 or later, you get a 1/1 dwarf. This card is awful. It is absolutely horrendous. Do not ever play it. Ever, 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 ever. These lands in general aren't great. The green, blue, black are sometimes fine, but you got to be very careful. You got to make sure that you are a minimum 10, 11 sources of this color, and still Dwarven Mind you should just never play. A 1/1 that late doesn't do anything. Resolute Ryder is up next. Resolute Ryder is Orzhov. So black, white, black, whatever. For a creature human knight, it's a 4/2. You can play Orzhov to give it lifelink until end of turn. You can pay Orzhov to give it indestructible. So of course you could pay 5 white or black or any combination to give it indestructible and lifelink. This card's great. This card's actually pretty darn solid. And the hybrid cards actually aren't that hard to cast, because if you're drafting this format properly, you are not drafting equal black-white decks. You're not drafting 9 swamps, 8 plains decks. You're drafting 11 swamps and 6 plains. You're drafting 12 swamps and 5 plains. And that makes this really easy to cast. This is even easy to cast if you are mono black, or if you're mono black with a blue splash. You can still put this in your deck. It's actually very strong, and the hybrid cards should be picked way higher than you're currently picking them, most likely, up to and including first pick. And so I'm actually first picking Resolute Ryder right now. Up next is Faerie Vandal. Faerie Vandal is 1 and a blue for a creature fairy rogue. It's a 1/2 with flash flying. Whenever you draw your second card, put a +1/+1 counter on Faerie Vandal. It's fine. Obviously, it takes some work to get it up there, but if you are going to be drawing cards, then this card is just a great payoff for that. Even if you're not, a 1/2 flyer for 2 is never awful, especially when it's got flash and you might potentially get a counter on it. It's still solid. It's not really a first pick in many packs. It might be in the question here with Scalding Cauldron and Ryder, but I think Ryder is just much better, so we're not going to keep that in frame, but it's a fine card. Up next is Rampart Smasher. Rampart Smasher is Gruul for a creature giant 5/5 that can't be blocked by walls or knights. A lot of people forget the knights part of this, because that's the more relevant part. We opened how many knights? More than 0. And we opened how many walls? Well, 0. Rampart Smasher, same thing with the hybrid cards. You should be picking them higher. This one's, I think, is a little bit less good. Not having indestructible, not having lifelink, not coming back from the graveyard, not looting and flying makes this worse than some of the other ones. But I would still consider it. But whereas I'm happy first picking a Resolute Ryder, I don't think I'm going to be happy picking a Rampart Smasher. And since I have to make the choice, I'm not taking the Smasher. Our rare is a Black Lance Paragon. It's not a Paladin. Paragon. It's a 1 and a black for a creature human knight. Is a 3/1 with flash. When it ETBs, target knight gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. So maybe you do this to gain a little bit of life on your attacks, or surprise kill something. Maybe this itself takes the death touch, and this is basically just a Gideon's Reproach or something. This card is totally fine, totally solid. And actually, we're going to have kind of a tough choice here because we've got to pick between Black Knight or Black Knight. So this is definitely in the conversation. These lands and tokens are not. I think Rampart Smasher could come into frame, and I think Scalding Cauldron could come into frame as well. Scalding Cauldron's kind of the cute pick to stay totally open and not jump into a color. And maybe you think, aha, I'm going to force my people into black. But keep in mind, that doesn't work. That's not something you should be attempting to do. As somebody at our draft on Friday night found out, they passed 2 very good white cards to people who opened extremely good red and black rares. And so those good white cards just went around the table more than they should have. You can't decide what your partners are going into or what the people beside you are going into. They just may not follow you. So yeah, I'm not on that plan. So I'm not taking Scalding Cauldron. And as I said, I don't think Rampart Smasher is good enough. So we're really between these 2 cards. And I haven't played them enough to exactly know which one to pick. This one is much more resolute, much more sturdy. It's going to live a lot longer. This one's definitely going to kill something if you want it to do that. So it's tough. I think I would pick the Black Lance Paragon. I would hope that maybe people are scared off from the hybrid and they still don't know that they should be highly picking these. So yeah, let's go with the Black Lance Paragon. But I can see a bunch of choices here. So let me know in the comments down below what you would have taken. As always, if you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always find me over at Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. Over on Twitch, remember, November 2nd, we're going to be doing the big 24-hour charity stream for Extra Life, giving away tons of stuff. Packs of Eldraine, a collector's pack of Eldraine, a ton of gift card money to Inked Gaming. They're actually giving me $10 for every $100 raised. So the more you guys donate, the more money we give away for Inked Gaming. And there's a bunch of other stuff, codes for games, etc. As always, you can go over to patreon.com/manaleek and become a backer there at whatever dollar amount you like. But if you are at the $5 level or above, you get a chance to get all the cards, or some of the cards, or none of the cards, or whatever you happen to want out of the packs each week, like Scary Gary P did this week. You can always go over to inkedgaming.com, use the promo code MANALEEK10, all one word, 10 is the number, to get 10% off your order, like I did to get a new playmat, and help the channel out that way. The easiest way, of course, is to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Apparently comments are very important and show engagement, so make sure you do all that. But if you do have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next time.